So, hello, good day everyone. I am Avan Moldez from Laguna State Polytechnic University. I am here to discuss with you about the concept, causes, and consequences of globalization. So, what is globalization? Globalization has become a familiar enough word, the meaning of which has been discussed with others before me during this conference. So, let me nonetheless outline briefly what I understand by the term. So, I shall then go on to consider what has caused it. The bulk of my paper is devoted to discussing what we know and what we do not know about its consequences. So the first one is the concept. So it is the world economy which we think of as being globalized, who mean that the whole of the world is increasingly behaving as though it were a part of a single market with interdependent production. So consuming similar goods and responding to the same impulses. So globalization is manifested in the growth of world trade as a proportion of output. The ratio of the world imports to gross world product, or GWP, has grown from some 7% in 1938 to about 10% in 1970 to over 18% in 1996. It's reflected in the explosion of foreign direct investment, or FDI. FDI in developing countries has increased from $2.2 billion in 1970 to $154 billion in 1997. It has resulted also in national capital market becoming increasingly integrated to the point where some $1.3 trillion per day crosses the foreign exchange market of the world, of which less than 2% is directly attributable to trade transactions, while they cannot be measured with the same ease. Some other features of globalization are perhaps even more interesting. An increasing share of consumption consists of goods that are available from the same companies almost anywhere in the world. The technology that is used to produce this good is increasingly standardized and invariant to the location of production. Above all, ideas have increasingly become the common property of the whole humanity. The second one is the causes. Cost as little as 48 cents, despite the fact that consumer prices have multiplied by over 8 times in the intervening period. The first computers were lumbering away the piles of pouch cards in the early post-war years, and telegrams provided the only rapid means of written communication. There was no fax or internet or email or World Wide Web, no PCs or no satellites or no cell phones. Today, we witness phenomena that no futurist dreamed of half a century ago, such as Indians with medical degrees residing in Bangalore who earn a living by acting as secretaries to American doctors by transcribing their types of overnight. So it is clearly the availability of cheap, rapid, and reliable communications that permits such phenomena, just as this is the key to the integration of international capital market. I presume the same factor is important in nurturing the growth of multinational corporations, since it is which enables them to exploit their intellectual property efficiently in a variety of locations without losing the ability to maintain control from head office. But in this context, I would surmise that other factors are also at work, such as the spread of consumer knowledge about what is available that comes from travel and from advertising, itself encouraged by the communication revolution and its children like CNN. The reduction in transport costs is also a key factor underlying the growth in trade. So of course, it needed a reasonably peaceful world to induce economic agents to exploit the opportunities for globalization presented by technological progress. But the technological basis for the phenomenon of globalization implies that, bearing an end to the Pax Americana or else extremely vigorous conscious action to reverse the process, globalization is here. The last one is the consequences. Globalization certainly permits an increase in the level of global output, whether as a result of the old Hecker-Share all-in theory of the basis of comparative advantage as lying in different factor abundance in different countries, or as a result of the new trade theories that explain trade by increasing return to scale. Trade will increase world output. Likewise, FDI brings the best technology and other forms of intellectual capital to countries that would otherwise have to make do without it, or else invest substantial resources in reinventing the wheel for themselves. It may also bring products that would otherwise be unavailable to the countries where the investment occurs, which presumably increase the quality and therefore the value of world output. And international capital flows can transfer savings from countries where the marginal product of capital is low to those where it is high, which again increases world output. Globalization must be expected to influence the distribution of income as well as its level. So far as the distribution of income between countries is concerned, standard theory would lead one to expect that all countries will benefit. Economists have long pitched that trade is mutually beneficial, and most of us believe that the experience of widespread growth alongside rapidly growing trade in the post-war period serves to substantiate that. Similarly, most FDI goes where a multinational has intellectual capital that can contribute something to the local economy and is therefore likely to be mutually beneficial to investor and recipient. And the flow of capital that finances a real investment is again likely to benefit both parties, since the yield on the investment is expected to be higher than the rate of interest the borrower has to pay, while that rate of interest is also likely to be higher than the lender could expect at home, since otherwise there would have been no incentive to send it abroad. Loose talk about free trade, making the rich countries richer and poor countries poorer, finds no support in economic analysis, nor is there any reasons for supposing that the North benefits itself at the expense of the South by imposing import restrictions like non-tariff barriers or agricultural subsidies. Standard theory says that while this does indeed impoverish the South, the public in the North also suffers and it loses more than the producers gain. This suggests that a promising strategy for eliminating such barriers is to seek a coalition with northern consumer, rather than to engage in North bashing, which will simply alienate potential North allies.